Fire. She was starving, trembling in the freezing mountain winds, ready to give up everything for a single piece of bread. But then, a mysterious mountain man stopped her hand, and what happened next changed her life forever. What he gave her was not just food, it was a secret that would lead her to something no one ever thought existed. Would she survive the mountain? Would she uncover the truth behind the locket? Watch until the very end, because what happens next will leave you completely speechless. Fire. The snow fell in heavy silence. Each flake melted the moment it touched her trembling fingers. Her coat was torn, sleeves uneven, and her shoes, barely shoes anymore. The mountain wind bit through the thin fabric, stinging her skin like knives of ice. She stared through the frosted window of the wooden inn. Inside, men laughed over plates of meat and bread. The golden light from the fire painted their faces in warmth and plenty. Her stomach groaned so loud it almost startled her. For 3 days, she had eaten nothing but snow and hope. A piece of bread lay forgotten on a table near the door. She stepped closer, her breath forming clouds in the freezing air. Her fingers brushed the handle, ready to slip inside unseen. But then she froze. A tall figure rose from the corner of the room. A man with a beard thick as winter moss, eyes dark as the mountain night. He moved slowly, deliberately, like someone who had seen hunger before. He placed his meal on the counter, still steaming. The smell of roasted meat made her dizzy. The door creaked as she stepped in. Every head turned. Her knees shook, her voice barely a whisper. I can offer myself, just for a piece of bread." The words hung in the air like frost on glass. The laughter stopped. A single spoon dropped into a bowl, the sound sharp in the silence. The man's eyes did not move from her face. He stepped closer, his boots crunching on the wooden floor. Her heart pounded in her chest, her hands trembling at her sides. She reached toward the bread, but his hand stopped hers midair. The warmth of his palm against her frozen skin startled her. His touch was firm, but not cruel. He slid the plate toward her. "Eat," he said, his voice deep, steady. "No one earns food with shame in my house." Her throat closed. Tears burned her eyes, but she could not speak. The scent of the meal filled her lungs, and she could hardly breathe. She sat, her fingers hovering above the plate, afraid it was all a dream. The man turned to the others. "She is someone's daughter," he said. "Someone's sister." He looked back at her, his gaze softer now. No one should trade their soul for bread. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, the fire crackled louder, as if the mountain itself listened. The girl took her first bite. Warmth spread through her like life returning. But when she looked up again, the man was gone. Only his untouched coat hung by the door. And beneath it, something glimmered on the wooden floor. A small, silver locket, engraved with a name she recognized. Her mother's name. Her breath caught in her throat. The locket gleamed faintly in the firelight, the same oval design her mother once wore. Her fingers trembled as she picked it up. The metal was cold, yet it seemed to pulse with warmth, familiar, alive. She turned it over and gasped. There, etched in delicate letters, was her own name. Not her mother's. Hers. Her heart thundered against her ribs. How could this be here? She looked around the room, searching for the man, but he had vanished as if swallowed by the mountain itself. The door still swung gently, whispering in the cold air. The other men watched in uneasy silence. No one spoke. No one moved. It was as if they too had seen something that did not belong to this world. She clutched the locket to her chest, her eyes burning with questions. The warmth from the food still lingered in her mouth, but her body felt suddenly weightless. The firelight flickered, casting long shadows across the wooden walls. In one of them, for a heartbeat, she saw his shape again, standing tall, still, watching. "Who was that man?" she asked in a trembling voice. The innkeeper looked toward the empty coat, his face pale. "No one has sat at that table in 10 years, he said quietly. "Not since Elijah Frost, the hermit of the North Ridge, froze to death bringing food down the mountain for travelers. Her spoon clattered against the plate. Her heart felt hollow and full at the same time. She looked again toward the door, but only snow drifted in. Wind howled softly, like a voice carried from far away. Outside, the storm had eased. The moonlight fell over the mountains, silver and pure. She stepped out, the locket still in her hand. Somewhere in the darkness above, she thought she saw a figure standing against the white peaks, watching her with calm, knowing eyes. And in that silent moment, she understood. The man had not saved her for charity. He had saved her because once, someone had saved him too. The wind carried the faintest whisper down the slope. "Live, child, live." The words lingered in the frozen air, soft as snowflakes yet heavy as truth. She stood there, her breath rising like mist, the locket pressed against her heart. The mountain seemed to hum, a low, ancient sound, deep beneath the ice and stone. It was not just the wind. It was something older, something listening. She looked up toward the ridge where the figure had stood. Now there was only silence and endless white. But she felt it, the same warmth that had spread through her when she ate his food. It was still there, burning quietly inside her chest. The inn's door creaked open behind her. The innkeeper stepped out, a lantern in his hand, its flame trembling against the cold. "You should come inside," he said softly. "You will freeze out here." She turned to him, her eyes still on the ridge. "Did you know him?" she asked. The man hesitated. Elijah Frost was a good man. Some said he was mad to live alone in the mountains. Others said he stayed there to guard something sacred, something he never spoke of. She touched the locket again, her fingers tracing the smooth edge. "Something sacred," she whispered. The metal seemed to warm beneath her touch, as if answering. When she opened it, a folded piece of cloth rested inside. She carefully pulled it out, unfolding it with trembling hands. It was a fragment of a map, hand-drawn, marked with an old symbol she remembered from her mother's stories. A sun above a mountain. The sign of the Valley of Springs. Her mother used to speak of it in hushed tones, a hidden place where the snow never fell, where lost souls found peace. But she had always thought it was a bedtime tale. Now, holding the map, she was not so sure. The innkeeper's eyes widened when he saw it. "That mark," he breathed. "That place is not supposed to exist." "Then why did he leave it for me?" she asked. The question hung in the air like frost. The lantern flame flickered wildly, then steadied, casting their faces in amber light. A long moment passed before the innkeeper spoke again. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "because you are meant to find it." She looked once more toward the mountain's shadow. The peaks glistened under the pale moonlight, wild and infinite. For the first time in her life, the cold no longer frightened her. It called to her, quietly, patiently. She closed the locket, tucked it close to her heart, and whispered into the wind. "Then I will go." The mountain seemed to sigh in response, as though it had been waiting for her to say those words. And as she stepped forward, the snow beneath her feet felt softer, like it was guiding her toward something she was never meant to forget. "You said." The night wrapped around her like a silent guardian. Each step she took sank into the snow, leaving behind small, fragile footprints that glowed faintly under the moonlight. The air was sharp, clean, almost sacred. It bit her cheeks, but her chest burned with a strange warmth, the same warmth that had begun when she first touched the locket. The inn's light faded behind her until it was just a speck in the darkness. Only the whisper of the wind remained, curling around her like a voice she could almost understand. It urged her forward. Not with words, but with something older, instinct, destiny, or perhaps the memory of kindness. She followed the narrow path up the ridge, her fingers brushing the rough edges of the rock. Every so often, she glanced at the map. The ink was faint but steady, the symbol of the sun glowing softly beneath the moonlight as if it were alive. When the path split into two, she looked up to the sky. The northern star blinked above the peaks, guiding her. Her stomach ached again, but she ignored the hunger. There was something stronger inside her now, something that pushed her past the pain. When she reached the first plateau, she saw it. A circle of stones, half buried in ice, marked with carvings too old to read. She knelt beside them, brushing the snow away. Each mark glowed faintly when her hand passed over it. The mountain air grew still, heavy with waiting. And then, a low, distant rumble echoed through the valley. It was not thunder. It came from beneath her feet. She staggered back, heart pounding. The ground trembled softly, and from the center of the stone circle, a crack appeared. Warm light seeped from it, golden and alive, cutting through the frost. She watched in awe as the light spread, melting the snow around her boots, revealing moss and soil beneath, green, breathing earth in the heart of winter. Her eyes filled with tears. The stories were true. The Valley of Springs was not just a legend, it was a promise hidden beneath the mountain. And as she watched the light grow brighter, she felt a presence beside her again. Not seen, but felt, like the air itself had taken shape. The scent of firewood and pine filled her senses. She turned her head slowly, heart racing. He was there. Elijah Frost. Not in flesh, but in light, standing on the other side of the circle, his face calm, his eyes filled with something infinite. The wind carried his voice once more, softer now, almost like a prayer. You found it, because you were meant to. She could not speak. Her throat closed as tears slipped down her cold cheeks. He smiled faintly, nodding toward the glowing crack. Step forward, he said. And remember, this place does not heal the lost. It remembers them. Then his figure began to fade, dissolving into the golden light. Her breath trembled as she stood before the light. It shimmered and swirled, alive like liquid gold, spilling warmth into the frozen air. Each flicker seemed to call her name, not with sound, but with memory. She felt her mother's laughter in it. Her father's hands lifting her as a child. The echo of everything she had lost, woven into a single, shining invitation. She hesitated at the edge of the circle. Snow melted around her, forming tiny streams that vanished into the glowing crack. Her reflection wavered in the light, thin, weary, but no longer broken. For the first time, she did not see a poor, forgotten girl. She saw someone chosen. A low hum filled the air, deep and steady, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. The stones around her pulsed with faint light, responding to her nearness. She reached out, her fingertips brushing the golden edge. The warmth shot through her arm, flooding her body, clearing the ache from her bones. It was not fire, it was life. As she stepped forward, the world shifted. The icy wind ceased. The biting cold vanished. Her breath no longer steamed in the air. She blinked against the brightness, and gasped. Before her stretched a valley unlike anything she had ever seen. Emerald grass rolled beneath her feet. Rivers of crystal water wound through fields of flowers that glowed faintly even in shadow. The sky was soft and pale, painted in endless dawn. And high on the distant cliffs, waterfalls of golden mist poured endlessly into the earth below. Her hands trembled as she covered her mouth. She could smell wild honey and pine. She could hear birds singing, real birds, not the silent ghosts of the cold. She sank to her knees, overwhelmed. Tears streamed down her face, falling into the green grass, vanishing as though the valley itself absorbed them. Then she heard footsteps. Soft, sure. She turned. A woman stood behind her. Her hair shimmered like morning sunlight, her eyes calm and knowing. The girl's lips parted, but no words came. The woman smiled gently and said, "You have walked through the hunger. You have walked through the cold. Now you must walk through truth." The girl rose slowly, her voice trembling. "Who are you?" The woman's smile deepened. "I am what remains of those who gave before you. Elijah was one. Your mother was another." "My mother?" the girl whispered, her heart pounding. The woman nodded. "She gave what she could, so that one day, you would find this place." The valley brightened. The rivers shimmered brighter, the air thick with light. The girl looked down at her locket, it was open again, and inside, instead of the map, a tiny flame flickered, steady and pure. The woman's voice softened. That flame is not a gift, child. It is a choice. The girl stared into the fire. What choice? To stay, and guard this valley for those still lost in the snow. Or to return, and carry its warmth to those who have none. The world grew silent around her. Even the rivers paused their song. The air waited. The first rays of sunlight spilled over the peaks, brushing the snow with gold. She stood motionless, the wind tugging at her hair, her breath steady and calm. Everything was silent, no whispers, no ghostly presence, just the raw stillness of morning. The locket glowed faintly against her chest. It no longer felt heavy, but alive. Each heartbeat echoed softly within it, as if the flame inside had learned the rhythm of her soul. She looked down toward the valley below. The inn was still there, a small dot of smoke curling into the pale sky. The same world she had left, yet it no longer felt the same. Something unseen had changed, both in her and around her. She began walking downhill. Each step left a faint shimmer in the snow, melting into tiny sparks before fading away. She did not notice it, but the mountain did. The air followed her, warmer now, carrying the scent of pine and wildflowers. By the time she reached the inn, the sun had risen fully. The door creaked open, and the innkeeper looked up in shock. "You came back," he whispered. She smiled faintly. "I said I would." He studied her face. Her cheeks glowed with life, her eyes clear and calm. The ragged clothes still clung to her frame, but she stood taller, steadier. There was something in her presence that made the fire behind him burn brighter. He stepped aside, wordless, as she walked in. The same travelers sat at their tables, but they fell silent as she passed. Something about her silenced laughter, even breath. It was not fear, it was reverence. She set her small bag down, pulled a seat near the fire, and spoke quietly. "There will be no hunger today." From her coat pocket, she drew a small bundle wrapped in cloth. When she unfolded it, steam rose into the air, fresh bread, golden and warm. The scent filled the inn. The inn grew lively, the sound of laughter and clinking cups filling the warm air. The girl sat quietly by the fire, her eyes reflecting the flames, her heart calm for the first time in years. The villagers who had once passed her by now looked at her with curiosity and respect. They did not know the journey she had taken, the mountains she had climbed, or the light she had carried within her. All they knew was that she had returned, and with her, hope. She held the locket in her hand, now cool and still, the flame within having passed its gift to her soul. She smiled softly, remembering Elijah Frost, the mountain, and the Valley of Springs. It had been a test of courage, a trial of hunger and despair. She had faced it, and she had emerged stronger. Outside, the snow continued to melt, revealing the first signs of spring. Tiny green shoots pushed through the frost, resilient and alive, just like her spirit. She stepped to the doorway and looked up at the mountains, the peaks bathed in golden sunlight. A gentle wind brushed her face, carrying a whisper she could barely hear. "Live and give." She turned back to the inn, to the people who needed warmth and kindness, and took a deep breath. Every step she took from that moment on would be guided by the flame she carried, a flame not of fire, but of compassion and hope. And in the quiet of the mountains, in the stillness of the snow, the story of the poor girl who had offered herself for bread became a legend. A legend not of hunger or despair, but of courage, mercy, and the extraordinary power of a single act of kindness. She walked forward, ready to face the world. The mountains had taught her the greatest truth of all. Even in the coldest, harshest places, warmth can always be found. The story ended not with sorrow, but with light. And with that light, a new beginning had begun.